I just turn on some lamps like next to it. I'm like, I hope it looks okay.
Well, we'll have to upscale for the next one. Is this one good?
That's right. It's perfect. It's perfect.
Perfect.
Yeah. Well, Jennifer, thanks for joining. How was your Christmas?
It was awesome. I
Yeah.
mean, Santa was good to me and the dogs. Yeah. Thanks for squeezing me in. I appreciate it.
Oh yeah, no, it's a pleasure. Yeah, it was funny. My mom was putting all these Santa stuff down like at the, at the last moment. Like we're all outside playing cornhole. She's like Santa had an, and they always get the gifts from the self like for themselves that they exactly want. They're like, how did Santa know exactly what we wanted? So,
It's magic.
anyways, well, yeah, thanks, Jennifer Estelle, for joining. You are the founder of the B and Let Live Project, and you have some pretty cool stuff going on. So I think where I want to start is with the pit bull advocacy and kind of where that started with, I believe, Buster.
Yeah, and I'll try not to cry.
That's okay.
Buster is no longer with us, but I always say I accidentally adopted a pit bull type dog. He was I actually, long story short, I adopted him for a friend that his dog tragically passed away, and he was a rat terrier. So Buster popped up on my news feed as a terrier mix. So I was
Yeah,
like, he kind of looks like Clifford. This will take the place and heal his heart. And it didn't work out like I planned, but
sure.
then I had this pit bull type dog, and I thought he was the best thing ever. He
And he
was the
was yours then, so it worked out.
Yeah. And then as I was telling you earlier, the first time I brought him to the vet, she just asked me, have you ever owned this breed before? And I remember her asking me that question and me thinking, well, what's the difference between this dog and another dog? And
Sure.
she just guided me. She was like, just educate yourself on this breed so you can have an educated conversation. And I had Buster for a little close to 9 years.
Wow.
And in those 9 years, I found my advocacy work, and I got really heavily involved in rescue. And she was right. I needed to educate myself to have an educated conversation about his breed.
Sure. And what did that look like, educating yourself?
I was watching a lot of documentaries because at
Nice.
that time there wasn't, well, now my algorithm is all pit bulls and
This was
advocacy.
before the super algorithm takeover, right?
Exactly. I don't even think I was on Instagram when I got Buster,
Hmm.
but the first documentary I watched was Beyond the Myth,
Hmm.
and that was an eye opener for me where I started following rescue groups, and I started following more like advocacy groups, people that were just not talking about the problem but providing solution driven like initiatives, um,
Interesting.
why we're in this situation and how we can correct it, because the animal welfare crisis that we are in is fixable. It's 100% fixable.
Sure. Sure. I mean, we had talked about this a little bit before, but it is just so interesting that like when you're looking up the dogs that bite humans the most, I believe it's dachshunds or like those little dogs that you have, and I think of my little nephew Harley, and he means well, he's a happy little guy, but he's a long-haired dachshund. But it's so interesting how just because they're small, they can be the aggressive ones, the aggressor, and people are like, "Oh, it's fine," or it's a Shih Tzu and it's barking, so it's no big deal. And then oftentimes, I think maybe the myth there is that some of these pit mixes or pit bulls um, can be. I think where it comes from is that one bad bite can make a significant impact compared to a little nibble from a dachshund, right? But in the grand scheme of things, their behavior is a lot on the client, and I think it's a very misunderstood breed from my limited knowledge about pit bulls, but
Yeah, you're spot on. And I always use, French, those Frenchies.
the French
Everyone has
bulldog, yeah,
them. Yeah. And it's cute when they lunge, and it's cute when they bark, and it's cute when they misbehave.
yeah,
But, those French bulldogs are a little genetically modified pit bull if you're going to do the history and look at the breed line.
sure,
And the behaviors that they're exhibiting are correctable behaviors, but it doesn't really, you don't have to correct those behaviors because it's cute when it's coming from a Frenchie. But it's the same behaviors that a dog that didn't have a responsible owner um, will display.
Right.
And it, if it does get up to escalated to a bite, it could be the difference between that dog living and not living.
Right. Exactly. And so after, so during Bust, you really kind of started to get into that advocacy side of things. And not only, well, first, I mean, I think it makes sense. You went down the correct path of let me educate myself. And then now that I've learned how to do this or understand certain things about this breed, how can I provide resources to other people? And that's kind of where the B and Let Live project started. And Liv is that Olivia? Is that your other? Okay.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And she's still with us.
Nice.
So every dog I have adopted or fostered, and by no means am I an expert. I still reach out for resources all the time. I have
Sure.
a new foster. He's exhibiting some behaviors that I'm like, okay, this is new, and I'm gonna need some guidance here. I'm not afraid to ask for help. And that was when I adopted Olivia. That's when I started working with trainers because Olivia has some fear-based aggressions,
Hmm.
and she is not a big fan of other dogs. So
Sure.
very slow, proper intros when it comes to her. But yeah, the Be and Let Live project is my nonprofit. Our mission is to help bridge that gap between human and animal welfare, and it stems from um, the knowledge that I attained through adopting Buster and Olivia. And I saw a huge gap in resources when it came to adopters, specifically pit bull type dogs. Where every dog I needed help with, I didn't really have a good resource to reach
Right.
out to because rescues and shelters, they're at capacity and they're doing the best that they can. So when the dog leaves the shelter or leaves the rescue, it's pretty much up to the adopter. And I wanted to have a place for our adopters to come that were having issues, if it was behavioral issues, or I mean, sometimes it's a little adjustment to a dog's diet. They can't talk. So a lot of times it's, their actions that are speaking to us, and it could come off as bad behavior. So just having a resource, a non-judgmental resource where you can reach out to somebody and say, hey, my dog's acting this way, and just kind of walk somebody through it. And at the end of the day, maybe that's not the right home for that dog. But knowing that you have a resource and somebody to talk to, we've have found a lot of success in that.
That's great. Yeah, and I like how, I like how it's kind of a niche idea and you are again bridging the gap, but not only between the animal and human welfare, but specifically for pit bulls and pit mixes. And I think that, again, we've talked a little bit about how I'm starting to kind of go into the nonprofit side of things with Wagworks Cares, but I think what can set nonprofits apart is like yours is not only a founder with experience and who's kind of in the world that they're diving into already somewhat, but also it's a specific idea because again, I think there's a lot of great rescues, there's a lot of great shelters, but again, they're at capacity. What do they do? And as we had talked about, I mean, the policy hasn't changed for years on that. So do you want to kind of speak a little bit about that?
Yeah, I do because what I've been finding too throughout the years is that a lot of the policies and procedures have not changed when it comes to the shelters. And probably rightfully so, but at the same time, dogs that are coming into the shelter that are overbred, um, maybe not in such like responsible hands. Um, they haven't had structure, they haven't had consistency. These dogs are large and they're very high energy. They're very smart and they're going to do whatever their owners want them to do. So if they're not in responsible hands or somebody that doesn't know how to guide this dog or provide the resources that it needs, it goes to the shelter and it starts exhibiting some behaviors that they don't have the time to deal with. So a lot of the shelters that are evaluating these dogs' behaviors, they're not using, and I'm not saying anything bad about shelters. I'm just saying that there's a
No, you
need
hate
for
them all, don't
change.
you? No, I'm just kidding.
There's a need for change. And when a nonprofit is knocking at your door saying, like, hey, we have this big problem in our community,
Yeah.
and these are the problems that are bullet pointed. And these are the solutions that we can help minimize dog intake numbers, euthanasia rates. Specifically, 98% of the dogs coming in and out of the shelters are pit bull type dogs.
Hmm.
Let's take a look at the
I didn't know it
community.
was that many. Wow.
Yeah, let's take a look at the community and see what's going on in our backyard. Why? Why do we have so many pit bull type dogs? And how do we correct that? And the number one thing is spay and neuter initiatives. There are not enough low cost spay and neuter resources. In my opinion, if you want a pit bull type dog, you should be on a registry. That dog needs to be spayed or neutered. That dog needs to be microchipped. And if you do have an accident of a litter, you need to be responsible for those puppies, not the shelter, not the nonprofit. We can work together, but we're never going to lower intake numbers, and we're not going to adopt our way out of this if policies and procedures don't change in our shelters. They're not keeping proper data, so you have dogs that are coming in and going out. And I get it. We're all overworked. We're all understaffed, but that's not no longer an excuse. And when somebody says our policies and procedures haven't been changed in 67 years, we need to know why. Because obviously things in the outside world have changed and we need to adapt. So we need to be able to evaluate these dogs that are coming in. At the end of the day, some of these dogs do need to be euthanized because they're so far gone beyond the help that we can provide. But we need to have proper behavioral evaluations and a place for these dogs to go so that they have a chance to decompress, to really get to understand their true personality, and that they can go into a home where these dogs are going to thrive.
Yeah.
So yeah, policies and procedures and proper data keeping is a huge initiative that needs to change so that we can help the shelter systems and our dogs in the shelter system and our community understand why we're in such an animal welfare crisis.
Definitely. And, I mean, I think sometimes with these systems that may be outdated, if you can bring in, I don't know, not necessarily an expert, but someone who can help do a little bit of work on the front end to kind of automate the systems and make everything okay. It's going to take a month or two to get things organized, but if you do that, work on the front end, moving
Mhm.
forward, things get so much easier. And even people who aren't necessarily all in the dog industry, not anyone can come in and help with maybe the computer systems, that kind of stuff. And that's another way to volunteer. I mean, I was on I did a podcast with Joanne Wetzel of Five Freedoms Photography in Raleigh, and she's great at photography. And so when she first started up, she would go in and take pictures of these
Mhm.
dogs, which even just an increase, I mean, what they had versus what they now had with those, I mean, it was definitely a huge change. But that one little thing led to more dogs getting adopted. So, I think it is tricky because things like policies and systems that they have. I mean, is that in Pennsylvania mainly, or is this something that's nationwide? And then nationwide.
Yeah.
Um, and then how does that change happen? Because you have shelters and you have nonprofits that are typically operating on a more local status.
Mhm.
So who's gonna lobby, or how do you make those changes is the question. I'm sure you've thought about that some to an extent.
Oh yeah, 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 for sure. We and every state is a little bit different.
Hmm.
So I am learning, and again, I'm no expert, but in the state of Pennsylvania, we don't have legislation fighting for these changes, which a group of us, a group of advocacies, have reached out to groups like Best Friends.
Hmm.
So, Best Friends are the ones that provide legislation. And I might not be explaining this correctly because I've had to have it explained to me a couple of times, but I'm learning.
Sure.
Um, So we are actively speaking to groups like Best Friends to get legislation in Pennsylvania so that when we go to Harrisburg and talk about the changes that need to happen with pet stores, with breeding, with policies and procedures, how we lower euthanasia rates, how we lower euthanasia rates. And again, it's going to come down to the mighty dollar, because if we have proper data that shows that there is revenue in rescue, things will change. And going back to what you said, you don't have to be a dog lover. 5 years ago, I was the crazy dog lady. And now people are kind of seeing like, this just isn't an animal welfare problem. Animal welfare and human welfare are directly connected. So if you are a human and you live in a community and you're worried about the safety of your family because of dogs running on the loose or your neighbor that keeps overbreeding them, you need to step up and volunteer as well. You don't have to love dogs, but you have to love your community, and you want your community and the people in your community to be safe. So if you have computer skills, reach out to your local shelter and say, how can I help? Just those little things will help us move the needle that much quicker, because if policies and procedures haven't changed in 67 years, it's not in the forefront to change anytime soon. But
Sure.
there are a lot of things that are happening behind the scenes with local advocacy groups that started off by saying like, we need other groups to step up and say we need legislation and this is why.
Sure.
So every time we have a issue, it's who do you write to, who is in the seat, who's involved, and it's just you know poking those people to say that we need to have a conversation.
Definitely. And I think, and I've mentioned this many times before, but just the surge of the pets being part of your nuclear family that we've seen in the last, I don't know, 10 years, 5 years, very recently. I mean, I think that is going to create a lot of advocacy, which it already has, and allow for some of these aged, policies to hopefully get updated. So I want to switch gears just a little bit. So another part of the B and Let Live project is the vineyard, right? So do you want to kind of share a little bit about how that came to be and what's going on with it right now?
I do, and I have been working on this elevator pitch for a while because I know I need to condense it.
So you get
But
to practice it here. Yeah,
yeah, the nonprofit came first. So and we all know that nonprofits highly depend on fundraisers and donations. That it's the I want to say I guess it's kind of like taboo, or I don't know the correct word, but just because it's a nonprofit doesn't mean it's not profitable. So I
sure.
wanted to go in knowing, like, with a business mindset that I want to create this nonprofit, but I need it to be profitable because, as you were saying in the beginning, it is very niche what we're creating.
Yeah.
Um,
And
so
you're
when I,
right. And I'll jump in just real quick. I
yeah,
mean, you're very right about that because when people start nonprofits, you expect them to be like, well, I'm going to give all this money to all the shelters. And, any money we make, that's great. And that
it's a
might do
business.
do things for a couple thousand, but you have to come in with a structure and a plan so it can be something that's financially independent and not determined on, going on social media and doing another GoFundMe or something like that. So I wanted to mention that. I mean, there has to be a lot of thought, as put into it.
Oh yeah, yeah. And as I was getting more involved with rescue and advocacy, I kept seeing all of these loopholes. And I was like, wouldn't it be cool if somebody can create something to like bridge that gap or bridge this gap? And then the more you think about it, the more you're like, well, I'm somebody, I can create this nonprofit. But again, I wanted to go into it's a business, and it's still a mindset of I need it to be circular so that when the funds come in, I can give it back to the community. So my intention was always pure, and I always wanted to, again, bridge the gap, but make it a community effort. So once I developed the nonprofit, the Be and Let Live Project, it needed a home. And I knew I wanted to be, I was really specific. I'm like, I wanted to have a lot of land and a tiny house. And then I'm going to build these cabins so that we can have foster dogs on the property. And I don't know what that's going to look like, but these are the puzzle pieces that I want to put together. So as I was looking for property, it was right after 2020. I found 16 and a half acres, and it happened to have 5 acres of vines on it. So it was a revenue producing property where I thought, well, if I create this LLC and then we have events for the nonprofit up there, I'm sure that at the end of the year, we can say, a portion of the proceeds that came in from Endless Mountain Vineyards goes back to the B Let Liv Project, which allows us to go put back into the community.
Definitely.
Yeah. So, everyone likes wine, everyone likes vineyards. I was like, it's a cool spot to have like events where we can make the nonprofit profitable. So
Definitely.
that's kind of how the vineyard came into play. I knew nothing about grapes. A lot has changed in 3 years, and
Yeah,
really influential in the Pennsylvania like viticulture area.
sure.
Everyone that has is local that has wineries and vineyards has been very open arms and sharing their knowledge and wanting to create the possibilities of having a great wine culture here, right here in the Endless Mountain Vineyards. So a lot has happened. A lot is continuing to happen. But yeah, the Be and Let Live project happens to be on a vineyard. That's our home.
That's pretty
And
awesome.
eventually, we will have cabins. So we'll have events. We offer workshops. We do Foster 101 workshops. Those are all virtual, but
Yeah,
we want to eventually build our events, our workshops, where the Endless Mountain Vineyards is a part and the Be and Let Live project is a part too. So again, it's that business motto of keeping it circular so that we can constantly give
sure.
back.
A positive feedback loop. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I really liked when we were talking earlier about I think it was on Facebook. You guys just made a post about the fostering 101. And I know you'd mentioned just like, coming in, you wanted to help people, learn how to foster, have a kind of a group that they can go to and talk to. And I forget it was one of your friends, and you can speak more on it, but basically the idea was like, well, it doesn't have to be perfect. Let's just post it and see what happens. And
Mm-hmm.
I really enjoyed hearing, how it's kind of grown from there. So if you want to speak on that a little bit.
Yeah. So, we always say, like, what can we do to help? And we need more fosters. And we know that there's like people are, and I was hesitant too at first. I'm like, I can't take a foster because then I'm going to keep it. And if that's the worst that comes out of you getting a foster, then great. But we wanted to know what the burden was. What's stopping you from having bringing in a foster? And a lot of people were resources. We don't want to get stuck with a dog. And I was talking to my friend Patty. She actually has a rescue here locally. She's who I foster through. So I'm on my second foster with Patty. So it's
Nice.
Patty Tails. Wait, Patty Wagon Tails Senior Sanctuary.
Awesome.
So yeah, we were having a conversation and she's like, let's just do it. She's like, let's just pick a day. We'll create a Facebook page and we'll send out a Zoom link and just see what happens. So far we're on January 10th, I think will be our third Foster 101. Our first one was what's stopping you from fostering. We had, I think, 12 people on that call. We did get a foster out of there. So this woman, Susan,
Great.
reached out like a week later. She's like, I'm ready. And then she got a foster and now she's like, it's a foster fail. She's like, she's not going anywhere.
That's
So
awesome.
we're going to
Yeah.
prepare her for her foster number 2. But yeah, it is an open-end conversation. We take about an hour. We talk about things. I will follow up with all of the resources, books, interactive all of the things that we use to be successful with our fosters are what we're talking about. And it's really cool to see people like open up to it and realize, it might not be in a commitment. And there are ways that you can help without saying, like, I'm just going to go out and adopt a dog. So yeah, the Foster 101 workshops are actually a lot of fun. I enjoy doing them, and I like to have the conversation around it. We our second class was fear-based aggression, which was a
Mhm.
good one to talk about. And this January is all going to be about body language and communication.
Nice. Yeah, and I just like that the Patty mentality of just put something out there, just do
Mhm.
something. I mean, I've experienced that a lot, like when I was looking for, people to work with me on this nonprofit and get the board of directors together. When I was looking, even like in college, when I was doing different like fundraisers for, I was doing some like Forsyth County Dental Drive when I still wanted to be, I was
Yeah.
just texting in big group chats and I was sending stuff out there. And it's just like, yeah, that does suck sometimes. And like, it's just in the same sense, if you're putting yourself out there and then no one comes to the foster thing, it's like, that's unfortunate. But then you have that one, like if I send this to a group chat and I get one $5 donation, or you have one dog that ended up getting fostered and adopted. I mean, I think all that's worth it. And you kind of have to be able to take a step back and look like, well, I know this is like annoying now, but it's the same thing as the front end, right? Once you get that set up, and it's not always going to be the most, or they're not always going to be the most comfortable situations, but when it goes down the line, things tend to get easier. I hope at least, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, it does hurt when nobody shows up for like the I'm in owning the business and the nonprofit. I've had a lot of fails. But you don't stop at your first one. You keep going. And the right people, and I think we've had this conversation too, is the people that you thought were gonna see you through are not the people that are still standing there.
Yeah. I mean, it's been interesting too, because like when I first started, I look back on it, and with some like I'm like like I wish I wouldn't have tried to get so many people involved or do this or that. But also now I'm here a year later, and I have a good like solid core group and idea of where we're going. And I think some of those like growing pains are really necessary
Oh
to
yeah.
continue, and you just have to be like, well, that was yesterday, we're moving
Dust
forward.
myself off.
Exactly, exactly. So, as far as those cabins, can you share a little bit about what that concept that you have? Because you're very conceptual. I like it. You're like, I will find this property. Then you found it, and here you have it. And you will have these cabins, and I have no
Mhm.
doubt you will. So, what is kind of your vision with that?
So every cabin it'll be a self-sustained cabin.
Hmm.
So we'll have separate like bathhouse when people come and stay. But I envision like an 8 by 16 cabin. It'll be a dog cabin, but it'll be a place where people can come and stay. So if you're interested in a dog, you can come and stay that whole weekend. Every cabin will have, its own fire pit, its own fenced in yard, so that if you have another dog, we can introduce the dogs properly as well. There's going to be
Hmm.
a lot of safety features that come along
Sure.
with all of our cabins. But even if you're not in the market for a dog, I have so many people that say, I wish I had a dog for the weekend. Well, this way you get to come, you stay at the cabin, you're in the Endless Mountains. We can curate a whole weekend for you. You want to kayak, you want to go hiking, you just want to stay on the property. You want to learn a little bit more about viticulture. You want to schedule a farm to table dinner. We have a chef on the property. We have wine. We have a healing garden that's right there on the property. You don't have to leave, but we can also create a whole weekend for you. It includes this dog as well. And at
Definitely.
the end of the weekend, you're not a good fit for the dog, but the dog got out all weekend. It got exercise. We learned a little bit more about its personality, what it needs. So, and
And
we
got
always,
new experiences as well, right? With different
Mhm.
people. Like, a lot of dogs are on the same routine, so it's always kind of fun to take them to a new spot and see
Yeah,
how things go.
yeah. Yeah, how do they interact with people? How are they with the kids? How are they in the car? Did they not like the kayak? Do they love the boat? Do they love the water? Things so like, next time you could have this dog, but it's not going to go on the kayak with you type of
Yeah,
thing. And at the end of the day, you decide that this dog's not the right fit for you, then the dog got the whole weekend, you got the weekend.
exactly. And you had a fun weekend regardless.
Yeah.
So is the idea that you'll be partnering with pre-existing shelters like Patty's, and then you will be selecting, I believe you said you can have up to, how many was it again?
I can have up to 3 cabins on my property. So 3 cabins, 3 dogs.
Nice.
And we want to be able to say, well, we do say that once you're a Be Let Live Project dog, you're always a Be Let Live Project dog. You're part of our family. So you take that dog home and then something is just not sitting right. We can provide training, we can provide resources, or the dog comes back to us. So I say, your dog comes with a guarantee, and I'm going to be your new best friend because we're going to see you through the whole process with this dog.
Definitely.
Um, so that's the ultimate goal. And as you know, we were talking earlier, dogs in the shelter, that those behaviors that they're showing aren't that dog's true personality. There's a lot of chemical imbalances with dogs in shelters. They're usually maxed out on cortisol, which is they're no longer in a parasympathetic state. They're in fight or flight. It takes honestly 3 months for those cortisol levels to actually come down. And I've learned, again, not an expert, but when the cortisol levels come down and the dog's triggered, well, the cortisol levels come up and then it comes down and then it gets triggered and then it comes up. So within those 3 months, where we're very adamant about the 3-3-3 rule and decompression of this dog, and this is where the cabins come in, this is where the property comes in, because the dog gets to come here, decompress, completely stress free. We'll do everything holistic that this dog needs to get its true personality at the 3 months so that it goes to the right family.
Right.
So that
What
dog,
is the 333?
3 days, 3 weeks, 3 months. So, like 3 days, that dog is just starting to learn your routine, know that he's safe or she's safe. 3 weeks is when, they're starting to build trust with you. And at 3 months, that's where all of their levels from,
The
trauma,
decompression.
everything that can, and every dog's going to be different, so we don't know the extent of a dog's trauma until we start seeing certain behaviors, which can be at 2 weeks, which can be at 4 weeks. At the 3 month mark, that's your dog. So, you might not see those behaviors until after the 3 month mark. And maybe that's not something that you want to take on, but you have resources with the Be Let Live project. And we're only a small portion of it.
Sure.
We're going to change and we're going to pivot as things come up. But the one thing that we are very adamant about and we talk about on every call is that decompression protocol. I need you to guarantee me that you're going to follow our decompression protocol when you take that dog home.
Hmm. Yeah, that's I remember you mentioning the word decompress a lot, and I like to kind of visualize that as the dog being able to kind of eventually, there's a lot more that goes into it, but dog just be able to lay down, sit down, and
Yep.
just relax,
For three
ultimately.
days, when you bring a dog home, that dog's in its crate, you're taking it out, you're feeding it, you're putting it back in the crate. Because the biggest mistake we make is we want to get that dog home and we want to give it all the love.
Yeah,
It's not used to that. It needs those 3 days to just chill out.
of course. And I
Mm-hmm.
like again, we talked about how it's kind of a niche concept where you're targeting pit bulls specifically or pit mixes. And I like the quality versus volume approach that you're taking on in the Endless Mountains Vineyard, where sure, I mean you could go look for a bigger space and look for 20 different cabins, but at some point that it reaches where the level of care you're giving, you can't scale as much yet down the line for
Right.
sure. But I believe that as opposed to, shelters that have a bunch of dogs and they're just trying to get them out, by you taking them, three at a time and going from there, I think you're going to be making more um, permanent progress rather
Hmm.
than just trying to have people adopt as shelters
Oh
do. So
yeah.
I like that approach for sure.
Thanks. And it came because our we are in animal welfare crisis. And if we don't make these small changes and figure out a solution driven initiatives, nothing's going to change. So we have to start small and we have to prove that this method works before we can go out onto a grander scale. I mean, me taking 3 dogs, that's great. But what needs to happen is spay and neuter initiatives, education for our community. There's no liaison between the shelter and home life. So you adopt a dog, and this is sad to say too, but shelters require a certain amount of adopted rates for them to get funding for the next year, but there's
Wow.
no follow through. Just
Hmm.
because a dog is adopted doesn't mean it's a successful adoption. And I
Yeah.
went through that myself with rescues. When I started having issues, just euthanize them. Well, are you going to let everyone know that funded or like,
Oh, I see. Because they are getting that adoption stat, but then you return them, and then you don't really say anything about it,
there's
just so
no
you can
follow
get.
up?
Ugh,
There's no
that's
follow-up. So it's an
sketchy.
adoption and, yeah, everyone's really happy when that dog gets pulled by rescues, and this
Mhm.
is sad to say too, not all rescues are the same. And I tell everyone this at Foster 101, do your research with your rescues. If you reach out to a rescue and they're hesitant about you bringing that dog to the vet, or they're hesitant about anything, that's not the rescue for you.
Sure.
Just because a dog was pulled by rescue doesn't mean it's safe. Nobody follows up. Just because a dog was adopted doesn't mean it's safe. Nobody follows up. The real solution to lowering intake numbers and to lowering euthanasia rates is spay and neuter. And don't even get me started on breeding. There's no such thing as ethical breeding, as we are killing millions of dogs annually. We're not going to run out of dogs.
Sure.
What we need to do is we need to put a cap on what's happening, and then we can figure out what breeding looks like. We can figure out what adoption looks like.
Right.
So to answer your question, yeah, we have to start small. 3 dogs, 3 cabins. I was like, that's it.
Yeah.
And then we're going to drive education and we're going to drive spay and neuter initiatives. That's where we're going to get our change.
I love it. Yeah. I love it. I mean, I think again, it's the what, how do you eat an elephant bite by bite, right? Like it's
Bird
not.
by bird, like Anne Lamott said.
Yeah, yeah, I think you're approaching it a very smart way, and wish you the best of luck with that. We have just a couple more minutes left. If you want to maybe kind of run down just kind of a highlight of what you have going on, and maybe where people can find you on socials or how to get involved.
Yes, I will. So Jennifer Estelle is my personal social, Facebook, Instagram. I'm not on TikTok. I don't have time for it. Endless Mountain Vineyards and the B Let Liv Project. Again, email is bletliveproject@gmail.com. You can reach out to me on any of the social media platforms, and same thing with Endless Mountain Vineyards. January, we have a Foster 101 boot camp. And we're working on a lot of workshops to provide the community education and resources. At the Endless Mountain Vineyards, we are working on a healing garden, which will help people with the grief from humans and animals as well. So there are a lot of holistic things that we are doing to create change and bring awareness to helping us bridge the gap between the human and animal welfare.
Absolutely, and keep your eyes peeled for the next dog mom retreat, right?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Well, the dog mom retreat is actually happening in October, but we have a couple of other things brewing for springtime as well.
Sure.
Everyone wants in on this dog mom
I
retreat.
know. I love it. Well, again, just keep it up. You're doing amazing work, and I can't wait to follow along and see how this progresses.
Well, thank you. I love to talk about my dogs and this project. So this was an awesome opportunity. I really appreciate you taking the time
Of
to talk
course.
with
I like
me.
to talk,
Me too. Me
And
too.
I
Let's
like the
talk
pet
about
industry,
dogs.
it's good. So, anyways, happy holidays, and I'm sure we'll talk soon.
All right, sounds good. Thanks, Richmond.